Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hey guys, what's poppin'? It's me, your girl, Elliana Grace, and you're listening to another episode of I've Been Thinking. So today I have a super special guest on here. We're going to be talking about routines, healthy routines, that's important, manifestation, tarot, spiritual lifestyle, all kinds of fun, good, constructive woo-woo stuff. I love the woo-woo stuff. So why don't you introduce yourself?
No, I love that you call it woo-woo stuff. Actually, I was laughing at that when I was listening to your podcast with, her name Anna Grace.
Anna Grace, yeah.
Yes, that was hilarious. But I guess just kind of introduce myself. My name's Elliana. I go by Hello Elliana on Instagram. I've been in the influencer space for about 6 years now. And those topics just come naturally to me. It's something of my natural interest, and I'm super excited to kind of go into deeper detail about it today.
I am so excited to talk about this with you. So tell us just a little bit, before we get started, for the listeners who might not follow you already, what's your thing? What are you passionate about? That kind of thing. How did you get into influencing? All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really try to talk about, I'm in a little bit of a rebranding period right now, but as a present day, I really like to share lifestyle tips, healthy habits, kind of everything that would kind of contribute to a healthier lifestyle. So just little micro tips like that through my everyday style. So I really am, like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to do that, how to share those tips in the most authentic way possible, but also still deliver fashionable pieces, because that's kind of where I started out as a fashion blogger. Back in 2017, I started my own blog, and I was very much into the whole like to know it. I got accepted into the program. I was very big.
Oh, wow.
That was very much my vibe back then. So I was doing the whole how bloggers, they'll do the Nordstrom's sale roundups, things of that sort. Yes. And it's not that I didn't enjoy that time in my life. It was just more of the fact that I came to the very hard realization, I think it was my freshman year of college, and I was like, listen, Elle, as much as you love to talk about this, you just cannot afford to get new clothes regularly. It's just not in the books for you. And then I think from that, I also was trying to transition to things that felt more authentic. So as a blogger, and I guess now influencer, I've gone through a lot of the message has been consistent throughout the same as in my blogging period, which is just really trying to be relatable and stay authentic as to the everyday girl. Because I feel just like you and me, we are everyday girls. So I really like to try to keep that part of myself. But also with that, I feel I've taken on so many different roles of how I'd want to be a blogger. At one point I wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw, and write about, and I wrote articles about boys and then kind of danced, you dated in college. So that was a lot of my earlier college years. And then now I think, like I said, I developed a lot more healthy habits mindset. So I really just would love to share that with people if it could impact someone in any way. So that's where I kind of am present day. In the longest summary ever, an intro, that's just kind of where I'm at.
No, trust me, that is not the longest intro ever. Trust me. I had one of my friends on here the other day, and his episode will come out before yours. But I was like, okay, introduce yourself, Devin. 20 minutes later, I was like, Devin, oh my gosh. Anyway, I love that. I love that you're transitioning from this like Carrie Bradshaw moment to a little bit of a Lauren Bostic moment, because we were talking about her before we got on, because she does have like a very wellness focused like situation. Mm-hmm. And I love that you're finding your way to do that in a very genuine, true to you format.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to try to take my own spin on it, but yeah, like as I've gotten older and I've learned more about myself and just like the more about this like space that I'm in, I really feel like it's important to translate that message to the people who have been following me since like, because a lot of my audience have been following me since like my freshman year. So primarily they've kind of grown with me as I've grown, not only with myself and my brand. So yeah, absolutely. I do like to try to keep that element there.
I love that. So did the whole coming into like spirituality and like establishing routines, was that easy for you? Was the spirituality like something that's always been a part of you? Has that been something you've discovered over time? I'm barraging you with questions. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Absolutely. So I kind of got into spirituality in 2019, the very beginning of it. I started following this astrologer. Her name is Doseva. If I'm saying that wrong and anyone knows that, don't come for me. But she is the creator behind Scorpio Mystique. And anyways, she was just like, her horoscopes are not your like typical ones. It's not like, oh, you're going to see a red card today and you may see the number 7. It's very much an in-depth horoscope that's more of a related more of like to a personal level, and it's not just like super like superficial. So anyways, I was a bunch of a skeptic as anyone else, so I started, as much as I resonated with them, I was like, oh, do I just resonate because like I'm having those feelings today? So I started reading my horoscope for the day before the next day, and I started seeing a pattern, and then it lined up. So I was like, all right, like I guess there's something more to this. But what really catapulted my spiritual journey was I had a relationship end at the very beginning of 2020 where I didn't get a respectful closure, or like just ending to it really. So I had to really look inwards to find my own closure to a lot of the questions I had. So I think when you start doing that inner work and you start really looking inwards to find not only like the answer you have to yourself, but just in general when you're reflecting over a breakup, that's when it really, I feel like my relationship to myself and my spirituality deepened and kind of catapulted me forward into this whole journey I'm on right now. So that's kind of how I got started.
I feel that very much. I had a really awful like breakup in 2000. Well, I guess kind of the end of 2018 was when it was like completely over, but it was like this horrible drawn out thing. But it started like in May of 2017, and that's how long it took. You know how those can be. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Men. And it was very much my inspiration for discovering more about myself and like learning about what, like who I am on the inside, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I totally went through something very similar with mine. But, you know, as horrible as that was to get there, I'm so glad to be on the other side of it now. And I'm so grateful for all of that. You know, it's wild because if you had asked me a year ago, because I was really in the thick of it this time last year. And if you had asked me a year ago, like, if I would have been, like, regretful or, like, you know, of any feelings associated with breakup, I would have been like, yes, like, I hate this. I would have wanted to go back. But now I'm just like, you know, us splitting ways was probably the best thing that could have ever happened. Not because he was just a horrible guy, but more of a fact that, like, I needed, like, I think this was all divine timing, not divine planning that I was going to look inwards. So it was completely transformational. So it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, and you have to be grateful for the things. Well, you don't have to be, but it's best to be grateful for the things that make you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially if you love yourself and you find that you're in a space that you're happy and you're in love with. Like, you wouldn't be there without the things that happen to you.
Yeah, no, it's all part of the process, the human experience, one could say.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So this, like, discovery of yourself, is that how you got into tarot?
Yeah, so it's funny. I never sought out tarot. It was kind of one of those things. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but there is this awesome holistic shop here in Lexington called Creatures of Whim, and they sell local crystals, kind of like what you're saying, woo-woo stuff, like very spiritual shop. And yeah, I actually was just going to buy crystals, and I literally was checking out, and I happened to look over, and I saw a tarot deck, and I have never had such a pull and a clear message that my intuition was telling me until that very moment. I was like, I don't know, I just need to buy this. So I just did. And, you know, I think it's not, and I think from there, it wasn't the fact that I was on a spiritual journey that made me want to practice tarot. Because I use tarot as a form of, like, shadow work. I don't even really like doing other people's tarot, just because it's energy work. So you're working with not only your energy, but then if you, like, take on someone else's, it can be super exhausting, especially if you feel everything super heavily, which I feel like I do. So anyways, to answer your question, I feel like, you know, when you do kind of go on a spiritual, and a spiritual journey, meaning, like, spiritual journey is an ongoing ever relationship. It's not just something, there's no end goal. It's just, like, something you kind of just go into. But I feel like tarot is just a natural interest once you do enter this kind of lifestyle. So it wasn't exactly that I felt, and I was like, oh, well, now that I've discovered I'm spiritual, I need to go get a tarot deck. No, it was more of a, like, a intuition. Oh my God, I cannot speak today. It was more of an intuition thing. So I kind of just went with that, and here I am today. And yeah, I like to use tarot as a self-reflection type of thing.
That's the best way to describe it. No, I like that. That's kind of how I use it too. It's funny. My dad is, like, a weirdly spiritual, metaphysical kind of person. And I say weirdly because you just wouldn't expect it from him, like, when you look at him. But there's been a tarot deck in my parents' house for forever and ever and ever. And he never really, like, used it, though. He just had it for some reason. I know that he did use it some, but it wasn't, like, something that he used a lot. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
I took it. I was like, you're not using it. I really am, like, feeling like I want to understand this. So I took it, and he had a Tarot for Dummies book, like those bright yellow and black, like, for dummies. He had one of those. I had no idea
they even made a book for that.
Oh my gosh,
so
yes.
Cool.
It's honestly a really good reference, and it's because it's just all in one little place. And it does an awesome job of explaining, like, a lot of the different, you know, ways that you can lay the cards and blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff is honestly a really useful book for me. But yeah, I started using it in the same way, and it can be super exhausting. I like to read every once in a while, like, I'll read for my boyfriend, or, like, I read for my dad one time, and I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, I feel like this is about some stuff you need to deal with, Pops.
Like, exactly. especially when your cards call you out when you're, like, discussing topics. Like, it's really funny. I feel like, Loki, like, the other day I was doing a reading because I was just I had some questions about something, and just, like, And literally the cards I pulled were telling me to stop looking into the cards for answers and just trust myself. And I was like, wow, y'all are really out here calling me out, huh? So
I love
I
that.
totally get that. Yeah.
That's so funny that you say that, because you're the second person that I've heard that from. I don't know if you listen to Wake Up with Wesley.
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's really awesome. Wesley Christensen she's a really cool person. But she talks about how she was basically addicted to her tarot cards for a really long time. And finally the cards told her, you need to stop asking us. You need to figure things out for yourself.
Absolutely. I think it's really your higher self and your angels trying to like give you a message. And that's what all of these are. Like this tarot work, it's just like messages from your highest selves. At least that's how I feel, but I think it's also up for interpretation and how you use it. So I agree.
No, I think that's a really awesome way to think of it. And whether it's your highest self or your angels or, whichever, I think that's a really good way to think of it, because it's just, you're being taken care of in that sense. They want the best for you, and that's just like what they're there for. But also you have to learn to trust yourself.
And I think that's just the kind of like the whole, no matter if you practice tarot or anything, I think that, like I said, that element of spirituality is just there to help you, remind you that. But all the answers pretty much exist within you. It's just like I feel like it's a not trial and error, but it's a process. It takes time to understand like how to trust yourself fully in certain ways. So yeah. Anyways, getting off topic, getting back to the point. Love tarot. Like I said, use it for shadow work. Don't really like using it with other people. Not because I don't love my friends, but because, like I said, it can easily drain you. Especially when you are entering, like, tell me if I'm wrong, though, but is it metaphysical mean, like, kind of like the spiritual world, the outer realms, and that sort?
Yeah.
Yes and no?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's like,
yeah.
Hold on, I just Googled the definition, so I made sure I didn't, like, say something wrong. It's like philosophy. And so it's like the nature of reality, like, but also like things outside of the physical reality. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, I love that, actually.
Yeah, I do too. It's like, things outside of human perception. That's like what the word came from in Greek originally.
Oh, awesome. You learn something new every day. Who knew?
Right? I love a good quick Google.
Right. No, I feel like that's like my life. I feel like that's like kind of my go-to line. I'm like, just YouTube it. Just Google it. It's 2021.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh, yeah. So you are into manifestation, too.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the techniques that you use. Like, did that come to you also through your spiritual journey that you've gone on over the past few years? Or, like, how did you get into that?
So, I think I've been subconsciously manifesting my entire life. But what really made me understand that I had the power to manifest was, like I said, I was going through that breakup, and when I was reflecting, I realized I manifested our breakup. In some sense. Yeah, but it needed to end. Like, and this is not me to, like, bring him down, because I'm not trying to say, like, he's this horrible of a person, but I just don't think we were the right people for each other. But, in that process, I think I kind of subconsciously knew that, and you manifest from your subconscious, too. But once I kind of understood that, I was like, oh, okay, so I do have a lot more power than I thought I did. So yeah, that was my first like realization, and from there, I think obviously TikTok. There's so much that pops up on there, but what's true, what's not. But I kind of started with like writing, so I would just journal about the things I wanted, and then I would see it come into fruition. So like for example, I interned with Thompson Lexington last summer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I loved it, and but earlier that 2020, I think it was like March, maybe April. I was just kind of writing down some goals I had, and and also something about manifestation for anyone listening. You have to be very specific about the things you're asking, because the universe will probably deliver, but it may not be always in the sense that you think it is. So, for example, let's say you're on a walk and you're like, I don't know, let's say you want to, like, see if your friend's going to drive by, or, like, a guy. Let's say, you know, like, we'll choose guys because, you know, why not?
Yeah.
And you want to hopefully, like, see, like, you're looking your best, you want your ex to see you. And you're like, okay, I want to manifest that he's going to drive by in his, like, let's say it's a Toyota Camry, okay? When you're trying to manifest that, like, the universe may deliver, but it may not deliver in the sense, in the sense you think it is. So, like, I'm trying to make sure this is, like, a super...
Like, specific. Yeah,
example.
I get you.
Yeah, like you may see a Toyota Camry drive by, but if you're not, like, super micro about every single detail, then, like, not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that, like, it may not come in the way you thought of it. But also, sometimes the universe delivers manifestations, and I feel like the universe and your higher self knows what's best for you. So, like, even if you really wanted something to happen, and you're, like, super micro, if everything detailed, like I said, 9 out of 10 times it will deliver to you, but not in the way you think it is, unless it serves your highest good. I guess this is what I'm trying to make.
No, I feel that. That's like my mom always taught me. She'd always say, you don't pray for patience because you'll be given things to test you that will give you patience.
Absolutely,
yeah. So, like, you have to be specific about what you're asking for. This, like, the same exact thing. Like, you have to be specific or else you'll get it in a way that, like, it still answers your question or your prayer or your manifestation, but it's not answering it the way you expected.
Absolutely. And it always comes on its own time, too. I feel like sometimes I see on TikTok, people are like, you need to set a date and a time, and, you know, if you don't meet it by then, you're not doing your manifestation, like, you're not doing your techniques right. And I personally disagree with that, just because, you know, human time is so much different than, I guess, like, universal time, just because, like, time on Earth is a man-made concept. So, you know, how we feel, like, how I feel like our time set and our time frames are super different than what's meant to be in the time. And, you know, and that's even if you believe in God, you believe in the universe, like, it's all, you know, in God's timing or the universe's timing. So, I think that is just the right, that is just, like, just something to keep note of when you are trying to gravitate something into your life. So that, and also something I've come to realize when, you know, I guess shows applying manifestation techniques, is it's really important to put in actionable, just put action into things that align with what your manifestation is. So, like, for example, I haven't had a car for 4 years, and I didn't mind that. It's kept me in shape. It's good for the environment, and I lived on a college campus, so it was fine.
Yeah.
But I do believe that it is time to have an upgrade for that. But I really want a Volkswagen Tiguan. Okay. So I don't know why. I just think they're really cool cars, and I see them all the time. So I'm like, yo, like, God's plan. Anyways, besides the point, you know, even though, like, I'm writing it down, like, and saying, like, I want certain things, I'm also making actionable cause to, like, do that. So, like, I'll do research maybe, like, once a month on, like, you know, what local car dealerships have the car, like, used, or, like, how much it would cost for, like, a payment. So, like I said, just putting action behind your manifestation helped a lot, too, to align with what you want.
Yeah. I mean,
In a long sentence to explain that.
No, it's perfect. It's like the idea that, like, from the Bible, the Lord helps those who helps themselves. Like, it's the same concept. Like, you can't say, okay, I want this, and sit back and expect the universe to just give it to you. You have to still take the steps, and as the universe sees that you're doing that, it will, like, boost your steps up even higher. Like, it helps you get there, but you have to do the work also.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It's really hard to, like, come to terms with sometimes, though, because you see those people on TikTok or whatever, and you're like, man, they just manifested, like, this crazy thing, and I'm like, why can't I do that? Because that's not what's meant for me. Like, I have to keep that in mind. But, like, it's hard. It's hard to see that happening.
Absolutely. And I think a few other elements to add to that. Oh my goodness, I don't know if you heard that in the back, but that was my tripod. anyways, moving on. And it's something, if people want to get into manifestation, I think a great tactic to use starting out is to start small. Because I also believe that part of manifestation is believing that it's actually going to happen. And I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like it could happen, but like really they're like, oh yeah, this is not going to really happen. So I started small with mine. Like I said, I would just write like, for example, like I was just like, oh, I want to see like this person this week. I'm like gonna like subconsciously manifest and I'm gonna see them, and then like that's a pretty tangible thing to do. And then like sure enough, I get a text by the end of the week being like, hey, you want to do something? And I'm like, oh yes, like perfect. So yeah, start small, learn that you can trust yourself, because that's also something that comes in hand in it. And then as time gravitates and continues, I think it just becomes a lot easier to do so.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think if you remember, and like for the listeners, if you've listened to the episode with Anna Grace that we referenced earlier, where she and I talk about manifestation and human design and all that woo-woo shit, she talks about her first experiences with manifestation, where she says, start with something small. She said she manifested a cup of coffee. And it didn't come to her the way she thought it would, but like it came to her. And so I did the same thing, and it was like crazy. It wasn't a cup of coffee. It was like that night, I think after I recorded with her, I was, of course, online shopping, and I ordered some stuff, and I was like, man, I really shouldn't have bought those clothes. Like, I don't have the money for that at the moment. Why did I do that? I need like something to come into my life so I can pay for that and feel more comfortable. That kind of thing. And literally within 15 minutes, my aunt texted me and asked me to house sit and dog sit for them. And they always pay me well. And I was like, oh.
Perfect. Yeah, those works out then. Yeah.
There it is. That's the universe answering my question. It was an awesome moment for me. Like, it was just really validating, Yeah.
It's also super surreal. I don't know if you feel this way.
Oh
but
my gosh,
like,
yeah.
It's always so, like, surreal to see it happen. And I kind of just look around like, does this happen? Like, I know it happens to other people, but, like, it's almost just kind of, like, so wild to even talk about. And I think the weirdest part for me is, like, you should have to carry on with your day. Like, something, like, so, like, remarkable just happened to me. And you're just like, oh, well, I still have to, like, go on. Life moves on. So I think for me, it's always so mind-blowing. I'm like, all right, like, I guess sounds good. So, yeah, I totally understand that.
That's so funny. You're so right, though, because it is, like, this mind-blowing, like, surreal thing where you're like, oh, my gosh. I did not expect that to actually happen. And then you just have to carry on. That's so funny.
Especially because we live in a society where, like, I mean, the structure of our society, like manifestation, spirituality, like it's still really taboo. And I do think that, our generation, that we are a little bit more, not open-minded, it's not the word I'm looking for. I think it's more natural to us, like, because it's kind of just like a trend to some people. So it's more acceptable in like our our age groups. So I think to other people, if you kind of try to explain, for example, my dad, I was telling him about a situation I manifested, and I think he's in his late 50s too, so he was just kind of making a joke about it, and he was like, oh, like, that stuff, like, did it really happen, or is it just coincidence? And so, yeah, I think when you're trying to explain this to other people who maybe are not as spiritually in tune, or just it's not really for them, it's definitely very big splits, very big difference between like the life you're living versus and what you see and how you see things versus like what other people. And neither's right or wrong. I just think it is something that's different for sure.
No, I agree. It's very there's a very big gap, I think, generationally between people who are like willing to accept these ideas.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was kind of going with that, willing to accept. Because it is a little hard to accept in some sense, especially when you're brought up with the idea of, and this is not tapped in religion, but like, for example, I feel like most people are brought up in like Christian households. We all go to church, so it's a very societal thing to do. So, when you go off on your own little spiritual journey, it is very surreal to be like, oh, like there is this whole other part of myself that I didn't even realize I could unlock and tap into. So yeah, it is a little bit not hard to accept, but it is a little different.
Yeah,
I
it
guess
is
I really
different.
just don't explain it. Just it's different.
No, it is, and
It's a
it
culture shock.
feels, yeah, and it feels in a lot of ways like you're betraying a little bit like these
Yeah.
things that you've grown up in and your family and like those connections. And it doesn't help either when your family like acts like that's what you're doing.
I love my family. I really do, but they love to pick fun at me about this. Like, they're not, like, degrading or mean, but they just
Yeah.
love to kind of pick at me for this because they don't get it. They don't get it, but that's okay.
I love my family too, and my parents are like so supportive. And like I said, like my dad has like this very spiritual, metaphysical side. He had the tarot cards, like all of these books in the house, you know, all that stuff. So I've grown up with that. But then at the same time, my mom is like, "But you still believe in Jesus, though, right?"
And you're like, yes, Mom, of course I do.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, I do. It's okay. I'm not going to hell, at least not for that. Like,
Right.
I'm kidding, Karen. I'm kidding. I promise.
Oh, that's funny. I love that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's hard for a lot of people. And then even people, I feel like in our generation, there are people who just I think they don't want to fall into the trends too, because when things like this, like when something spiritual, you know, becomes trendy, people will be like, it's just a trend, it's not real. And because my boyfriend Adam kind of does this, where he's like, "Elena, did you hear about this on TikTok?" And I'm like, "No, Adam. Like, this is a real thing. I've researched this." And he's like, "Okay," but he's still not into it, right? But then I read his tarot cards, and they really call him out on something, and he's just like,
Mind blown, I'm sure.
yeah, he's like mind blown on the inside, but he won't talk to me about it for a little while.
Right.
He just is like, that's fake. Bye. I'm like, you know, it's
Men
true.
being men. Men being men, but then they eventually are like, hey, you want to do another tarot reading?
Yeah. He's like, tell me more about that. What should I do? What did I say? Yeah.
I swear.
It is. It's so funny. But you were talking about journaling being one of your like go-to manifestation techniques, and I have to wonder, because we also talked a little bit before we came on here about your like routine, like how you have daily routines and that kind of thing. Do you think that journaling being one of your go-to manifestation techniques goes back to you being like a kind of written down routine-based person?
Yes and no. You know, I don't like to feel like anything's a chore, you know,
Yeah.
especially when it
I'm the
comes
same
to
way.
like right. So I think I have about like 5 to 10 things that I enjoy doing, and journaling, tarot is one of them. And I do try to strive to at least do 5 of those things out of 7 days of the week. So it's not necessarily a routine for me. Like everything I like journaling, for example, like it's not something I do every day in my routines. But you know, on new or full moons, I do like to, you know, journal, reflect on that, like this last period, you know, between like the full new moon. So that's why I think I journal the most. I think naturally I'm a writer just from starting out as a blogger. But I think I did start manifesting more with just writing, but now I use more of law of assumption, which I would love to go deeper on, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the writing technique to manifestation. But I don't, like I said, I think it's more of just an option for something to do. But I think I do write the most on relevant days, like I was saying earlier, full moons.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you explain just like a high level of what the law of assumption is?
Absolutely. So, law of assumption is just assuming that things are going to play out in the way that you want to. So, like, going back to the whole car thing, you know, whenever I'm out with my friends and we're driving and we pass one of those cars, like a Volkswagen Tiguan, I'm like, oh, there's my future car. And sure enough, just me speaking that out and just believing that to be true, which I do. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know where, how, but I do believe I will drive that car one day. And, you know, with that, I speak it into the universe as if it's going to happen. And I think just naturally, like, and it kind of then ties to law of attraction, because you're attracting that thing into your space, but then you're not having a hold on it, so you're kind of detaching from it. And sometimes, and that is the key to manifestation, is just trusting in yourself and trusting in the universe that these things will come to you if they align and are best for you. So I don't see why it wouldn't align for me and it wouldn't happen. But, you know, it could be very true. But law of assumption, like I said, it's just assuming that things are going to play out in the way you want them to. Again, it may not look exactly how you thought, but in some sense it will relate back to what you want.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. I think that's honestly not a bad way to live. Like, you prepare just in case something awful happens, but like you make the assumption that things are going to work out for the best and like for the way they need to.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest difference between law of assumption and law of attraction is like the frequencies you're vibrating on. So like whatever is matching those frequencies is what you're going to bring in. So for example, like if you are having a bad day and you're just like, oh my God, my vibes are low, this is the worst day. And then, you know, let's say you're in that frequency and then you spill ice cream on your dress. I'm just going to use an example from like a bad day I had like the other week. And it was just, and then I was like, oh my God, like I have this stain. And then like 3 more bad things are happening. That's an example of law of attraction, because those are the frequencies I was in. And the only way to get yourself out of that is just expressing gratitude, even if it's for the littlest thing in your life at that moment. Versus, like I said, law of assumption is not necessarily like, I mean, like I said, it's just assuming it's just going to happen the way you thought of it, and there's no other plan B. It's just going to happen. So yeah, it's kind of like, I think the law of assumption is non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the biggest key difference. At least I believe that. So.
No, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And that's something that I struggle with a lot, is the law of attraction, because I will get like, I mean, earlier I was having a bad moment. Like I was having a meltdown and I was just crying, and Adam was like, Elena, it'll be okay. Like, you can't just sit here in this though. You've got to do something about it. And then he like made me laugh. He told a joke or something and made me laugh and, helped me come out of it. And I'm like pretty much fine now, as fine as I can be. But
Right. Exactly. I understand that.
Yeah. It's really hard to pull yourself out of that. But I think that that's something I come back to a lot is, and especially in the past few months, that's something I come back to a lot, is that idea that as long as I'm in this mood, like this vibration, like you said, that's all that's going to come to me is bad things. And I think focusing on something good, being grateful for something, or like just focusing on that little good thing, like, yeah, you spilled ice cream on your dress and that sucks, but like you're eating an ice cream and that's pretty cool.
The most ironic part about that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry. I think the most ironic part about that oh my gosh, that example too, is I actually went to the grocery store to buy myself ice cream to cheer myself up, right? And like I'm sitting on my porch eating it, and then it gets on my dress, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and then my phone falls through the porch.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes, oh my god, you should have seen it. We literally, and the funny thing about this porch too is like, it's not like you can just go under the porch, like it's like all guarded up, so you have to like go through like certain holes. It's long to explain, but the moral of the story is, yeah, for sure, when you're in those frequencies, it is easier to attract, and that's where law of attraction comes in, because they go hand in hand in my opinion. Those things into your life, and and I will say, like, yeah, it is really hard to pull yourself, especially if you are in a low point. It's a lot easier said than done, and I think that's when you have to make very conscious choices in those moments, especially in those moments when you're at low frequencies, in order to get yourself out of that. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's so much easier said than done, so I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's easy, just say you're grateful and life's gonna be all great. Like, it's not that kind of simple, but
it's not like a toxic positivity thing, but it's like you just have to find something good to focus on, and that's how you pull yourself out, is on that good thing. Or like at least how you begin to pull yourself out.
Absolutely. Like, even if I'm having the worst day ever, like, something I like to start as a basis for my gratefulness is, like, I'll be like, okay, well, I'm grateful that I am, like, not sick today. I have good health, or I have friends, or my family's in good health. Just starting little, honestly. Sometimes it's the best way to do it if you're, like, having a really bad day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, those are really important things to be thankful for, though. So I think those are really important.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And I'm sorry you had such a bad day. I
Oh my
wish that
gosh.
wasn't.
No.
At least we're here now. We're raising the vibes.
Yes, we're here now. We're raising the vibes. They have been raised significantly. Don't worry. It was just a low point. Hopefully, the lowest point that the day will give me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, bright side, it's almost done. It's halfway there.
You're
If all
so
else
right.
fails.
You're so right.
Right? Yeah.
I can go eat some sorbet or drink some sangria or something and just get in bed.
Yes, exactly. Solve problems.
Solve the problems. Well, I know that you have somewhere to be, and I don't want to hold you too much longer. Thank you so much for coming on. I think this has been a really awesome talk. I think the listeners will love this.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I really enjoy talking about this. And one point I wanted to make before I hop off here
Yeah.
is for anyone listening, I think there's a big misconception about like what being spiritual is. And I just really want to emphasize that being spiritual isn't, owning a crystal or owning a tarot deck. Being spiritual is just making very conscious and intentional choices that align with your highest self and align with the person you want to be. And then that creates a lifestyle. And those, like I said, those elements like tarot, like crystals, like meditation, those things just come natural interest when you start living a very intentional, conscious lifestyle. So I just want to clarify that anyone, because like you said, like I feel like especially on TikTok, the community, spiritual community, there's just a lot of people who see other videos are like, oh yeah, that's what spirituality is, or I think this is what you should be doing, when it's not maybe the correct information. I guess.
No, I think that's a really important clarification, and I really appreciate that. That was really good.
Absolutely.
Well, go ahead and plug yourself, Elliana. I want my followers to be able to find you so they can find all of your awesome content, because I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, my Instagram is Hello Elliana, and it's ELLIANA. And then my TikTok is Hello Elliana Marie. But in my bio on my Instagram, I have all my social links linked to a link tree, so you'd be able to find all my social media handles from there. I try to make it really easy for people.
Well, that is perfect. I love a good link tree.
I love it. And thank you so much for having me again. Like I said, I really enjoyed talking about spirituality, and especially with someone who's a believer as well. It's really awesome to find like-minded people, especially like-minded women in the influencer space who are on very similar wavelengths. So thank you so much again.
You're so welcome. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of your insights, because this has been really, really good. I wanted to ask you one last thing. Do you have any resources that you would recommend just off the top of the head? And it's okay if you don't right now.
No, yeah, absolutely. So some resources I think would be awesome. Like I said, obviously listen to our girl, Lauren Boswick, Skin and Confidential, great podcast for like more of like productivity and just kind of like lifestyle. Like I said, spirituality is a lifestyle. So she's really great for helping someone create routines, lifestyles, like hacks of that sort. But other than that, my best piece of advice and just kind of resource like to give to someone is just kind of take everything with a grain of salt and notice patterns. So like I said, like, I keep going back to TikTok because the community is so saturated, you never know what's real or not. But I like to look at things as a pattern. So if I hear something from one creator, let's say on TikTok, and another creator on Instagram, and if I see that pattern that it all matches up at least 3 times, then that's when I'll go and do my own research on the internet and like make that that correlation if I believe that's true or not. So like I said, do your research, trust yourself, and definitely just try to make very intentional choices and really just try to understand yourself in that sense. I hope that answers your question. I know that was super long.
No, that
But that's the best way
absolutely
I can tell you to
does.
describe it.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really good advice. Being intentional, also looking for patterns. I don't know if you've ever heard it called this, but a lot of communities, and my dad is a member of some of they call it synchronicity. So it's
Yes, yeah.
like this higher, pattern occurrence. These things are happening in your life for a reason so that you take notice of them. So I think that's really important that you brought that up.
Yeah, angel numbers. That's one more thing to touch on. With angel synchronicities a lot, it's most likely your angels or God, universe, whatever you believe in, trying to give you a message. So just kind of be mindful of what you're thinking about at that time. You can even write it down in your notes. But also a great website to look into that if you're ever trying to look for like angel numbers is Joanne Sacred Numbers, I believe it's like the website. I can send you.
Yeah, send it to me.
Okay, it's called Joanne's Sacred Scribes, and it's just like it's on a blog. So she has like all of these numbers, and then she has all of these translations of what those numbers mean. So, like I said, take everything with a grain of salt. Trust yourself. Believe that you have the things are working in favor for you, not against you. And I think the rest just honestly comes naturally the more you try to deepen your relationship, not only with yourself, but the spirituality is who you are at your core. I feel like it's not something that's around you. It's something that's within you. And in order to unlock the spiritual side of you is when you start to look within and you start to, at least for me, I feel like reflect on, the kind of person you are, the kind of person you want to be, and the kind of things that you maybe need to work on in order to unlock your next self, to step into your power. So,
Yeah.
anyone listening, that's the best advice I have.
No, that's really beautifully said. I think that was really good.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, for everyone listening, all of those resources, like I'll tag that website, everything in the blog post for today's episode. And I will also include all of Elliana's, like her Instagram, her TikTok, all of that. I'll put links to that in the blog post and the show notes for today's episode too. And you can find that blog post at I'veBeenThinkingPod.com. And then also make sure that you follow along at I've Been Thinking Pod on Instagram, at I've Been Elliana, ALANNA on TikTok. I do weird stuff on there. I talk about episodes. I shake my butt. I do all kinds of random different stuff. So yeah, that's a good time. It's a really weird time. I'm trying to figure that out.
No, we love it though. It's the best. It's the best. Highly would recommend watching all of it.
It's so weird, but I'm just doing me, I guess. I don't know.
As you should. I totally understand that. I totally get the feeling. I've done that before too.
Yeah.
So.
I love it though. Well, again, thank you so much, and thank you guys for listening. We love you.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream,
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new Connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com.